This is a quick introduction to the next version of Instadeq. We are developing a new version with the different abstractions and ideas. Let's start quickly, and later I will do a more detailed overview. So there's not much UI yet, but the main idea is that you will have cells, freeform cells, not like in Instadeq where you have a fixed layout for tasks. And we can register plugins for different tasks. Right now I have some sources and some ways to manipulate the data. I will open some of them. For example, a clock just generates some data with the current time, and it updates once every second. Other sources for common data formats like CSV, for example, I can either drag and drop a file there or select it. I can also load JSON or drop it. You can see that it's fully interactive. We can paginate on every place. We have some extra information. Like we can get a field to the values on this position, to the size of this item, and of course of the parent. And we can collapse the whole structure or substructures. This applies to data anywhere. We can also, of course, collapse the cells. On tables, the same applies. We have the size, we have the rows, we can paginate, we can collapse, and we can sort by multiple columns. And finally, of course, these are plugins, so we will support more types of data. But these are the three I started with. It's basically a spreadsheet, which is one or more sheets of data, which are grids of columns and rows. They are different from tables, where the tables on the columns, they have names, and every item is a record with named fields, and a spreadsheet is just a grid of cells, numbers by number, on columns and rows. We can do the same as the other ones, and I will start again to show what we can do with this. Let's start simple. Let's say we have a CSV file. I've been using this example for a while, and we have some football, soccer, or any sport matches. Each row has a home team, the away team, home goals, away goals, and the round. And let's say we want to get some extra information out of that. For example, we can do a query for all the home teams that scored more than, well, we can have home goals here, that score more than 2 goals or any amount of goals. Let's say more than 3 goals. And how many goals the other team scored, and which one was that team. So now with drag and drop, we built the result. We can sort by team and then by goals. We can see that this team has twice scored 4 goals. We can add something extra, for example, and they score more than 3 goals, and the away team didn't score any. There was only one match, as we can see, size 1, that the team scored more than 3 goals and the away team scored 0. As you can see here, we basically build queries by example. We provide which fields we want, and we provide examples of the conditions, and we get access to what we call a formula editor, where we have arithmetic operations, logical operations, text in case we are working with text, functions or operations over data, and we will see that later, and more advanced like colors, emojis, lists, and what we call records. They're called maps, objects, key value pairs, and everything is based on drag and drop. For example, if I want to add an extra condition here, I can say and and I can drag this whole thing here. And if I want to say home goals and then 3, everything, almost everything is draggable. We can say if they scored either 3 or 4 goals. So either 3 or 4 goals, and the away team scored 0. This is a query. So a query has some fields we want to select, which will go on the table, on the output table, and some conditions. We can operate on the these are the input variables. We can rename them. Let's say team A. Rename this to team B. And then of course we can rename home goals and away goals. And when I rename a variable, it's renamed everywhere on the select and the conditions. So this is a query. I will collapse this, and let's see aggregations now. Aggregations are like queries, but we can do everything we can do on a query, but we can also, of course, the result is an aggregation. So let's aggregate goals by team. So I drag home goals to select and home to the group by, and I will rename them so that the columns are shorter. And it by default creates an aggregation of many stats. In the future we will be able to select which ones we want to calculate. And so let's see which was the team that scored the most goals. So this team is the one that scored the most goals, and this is the one that scored the least. The sorting is stays, so whenever data updates, everything is recalculated and sorting is maintained. So sorting is it's kind of part of the query, but we don't do it on the query, we do it directly on the result table. And we can put conditions. For example, we can say how many goals did each team scores when the away team scored 0 goals. And so now we can see that the average goal, this team is the one that has the highest average goals when the away team scores 0 goals. And if we sort it the other way around, we can see that this is the team that scored the least goals when the away team scored 0. And the next thing is we can also do extra calculations on data. If I create a query and I want to calculate the goal difference for a team, I can say, okay, select the home team, and I want the home goals and the away goals, and I want to calculate a new field. I clicked here the plus symbol and I get a new field. Let's call it goal diff, and I click on the value and I get the formula editor, and I say I want to do a subtraction of the home goals minus the away goals, and I want this goal difference on the output. And now I sort by goal difference, and we can see that this team is the one with the most goal difference. So we can do field calculations based either on the input parameters or on other variables. And this allows us to derive data from the input data. And as you can see, the tool does the iteration for us. For example, if I create a source with the clock and I want to, I don't know, do an aggregation of it won't make sense, but seconds by minute, and I want to calculate something like seconds times 10, for some reason, or times 11, and I want to name it something, and I want it on the output. It creates a table as an output with just one item. So it doesn't matter if the input value is a single thing or a collection or a sequence, it will always generate a table as an output. So the idea is that as quick as possible we generate a standard format for all data, which is a table. We can see how to do this. You can see that the data updates instantly when the clock changes. If we have a spreadsheet which is not a table, how do we do that? We can create a new query where we say, okay, I want the product, I want the credit card, and I want the price, and I will rename them to product, card, and price. And now we have a table with this data, and we can keep operating on this. So we quickly get the data we need with the names we need, and we can filter them. For example, we can say that we only want, let's say, from the United States, and let's rename this to place. So now I only have the operations done on the United States. Another thing is you can compared to Instadeq, you don't have to know what Instadeq is, or you don't have to use it, but here it's much easier to combine data from multiple sources. For example, I will reload so I have less stuff on the screen. If I have the matches information from before and the clock, I mean they update differently. This one updates whenever I drop a field or whenever I load a new file, and this one updates every second. And let's say I make a query for something that doesn't make a lot of sense. For example, the home team and seconds. This will update whenever either the clock or the CSV updates. So it depends on two different sources and updates whenever any of those update. So we can have, for example, a CSV table with some static data, for example, a table from IDs to names, to descriptive names, and then some source that gives us an ID and a value, and then we can update the table of mappings or the sensors, and whenever any of those update, the result will update. So it's really easy to combine data from multiple sources, even when one is a stream of sensor readings and the other one is a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet or a JSON file. Here everything is handled automatically. So now let's explore a little bit more the formula editor. I will create something quick, a query. I will put the seconds. I will create a new calculation. So we have numbers as usual in any calculator, unary operation, square root, exponential, logical values, true, false, and not set. We can do comparisons, equals, not equals, less than, more than, greater than, less or equal. We have logical things, and, or, not. We have text, and we have operations on text. For example, we can remove blanks. Let's move this the text representation of the day, and I will drag and drop the text variable on the text. And now, well, this is not a useful one. Let's search for uppercase or lowercase. And we transform the PM should be lowercase for this field, as you can see. Functions have a descriptive name, and parameters can be anywhere inside the name. Here we can see what type of result we get. And something new and useful is, let's get, there's one called get field seconds from current date. We have the concept of enums. A function or many functions can use enums. So here we can see that we are getting the month field from the current date. It's more useful if we get the seconds. So anytime the date updates, we get the seconds from the current date, which of course we are getting it from there, but the idea holds. And you have seen already operations. We have many operations from text for every data type, and we will keep adding more. We also have more advanced data types like colors, emojis for symbols. They are useful. And also people know how to use an emoji keyword. It's pretty similar to the ones available on mobile. For example, search, skin color, and symbols. But we also support more advanced data structures. For example, if I want to create a new list with 8 colors, I just do this and I get it, and I can operate on individual things. We also have maps, so I can create a map of 4 emojis. We can create new entries, we can rename the entries. For example, here I can rename this to this key, and it goes here. I can of course edit the value also. And so we have records, we have lists, we have colors, we have emojis, we have numbers, logic, we have everything, and functions. So we have everything that is available on any programming language, and we will keep adding functionality. And if you are a programmer, you can see that basically each cell is a function that has input parameters, some local variables, and a result. So in the future we will allow to rename a cell and expose it as a function. And this is just work for a couple of weeks, but in the next weeks I will be working on creating visualizations from the tables and supporting more streaming sources, and of course adding some persistence and sessions to it. But this is the core idea of the next version of Instadeq, and if you have any feedback, you can find me online on my social media accounts, or instadeq.com, or Instadeq on Twitter, or any other social media, and I would love to hear your feedback.